Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something absolutely fascinating, the spectrum of how institutions around the globe exert control. We're talking borders, technology, truth, and basic human rights. From the democratic halls of North America all the way to the extreme totalitarianism of North Korea, we're going to look at the vastly different ways authorities try to manage their populations, and ultimately, our futures. Let's get right into it. Okay, so here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the levers of society, then look at engineering demographics in Canada, nationalizing the AI future, media truth and education, and finally, dictatorships and silent revolutions.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the levers of society, defining institutional power. Every government and institution out there, regardless of its political makeup, has tools or levers at its disposal. They use these to maintain stability, manage resources, and guide the public narrative. But it begs a really foundational question. How much control do these institutions really have over our lives? Because as we'll see, it's a constant push and pull between the folks pulling the levers and the citizens who actually feel the effects. Moving on to Section 2, engineering demographics in Canada, a policy U-turn.
Now look at this. This is an absolutely unprecedented reversal in Canada. We're talking about moving from historic highs in immigration to negative net migration in literally just a couple of years. So under Justin Trudeau, post-pandemic labor shortages led to loosened temporary foreign worker programs. This skyrocketed net migration to over 1.1 million by 2023. That's a massive number. But then, by early 2025, under Prime Minister Mark Carney, this number astonishingly plunged below zero, meaning more people are actually leaving Canada right now than arriving. And just to put that into perspective for you, this is the first time this has happened since World War II.
So what caused this massive shift? Well, by late 2024, an all-time high of 54% of Canadians felt that too many immigrants were arriving. This public sentiment directly drove this systemic U-turn. The anxiety was really fueled by intense pressures on housing and infrastructure, and it fundamentally altered the country's political landscape.
The government had to respond, and they did so by actively engineering the demographics. Prime Minister Mark Carney's administration placed strict caps on temporary workers and international students. The goal here was to regain control over the nation's borders and infrastructure. They also made it substantially harder for temporary workers to transition into permanent residence. So what we're looking at here is a prime example of a democratic institution aggressively pulling its policy levers just to realign with a massive shift in what the public wanted.
All right, let's pivot to Section 3, nationalizing the AI future, state versus tech.
Transitioning from borders to technology, there is a really stark contrast emerging right now. It's between America's traditional free market stance and a new push by the Trump administration to partner directly with AI giants. Historically, as you probably know, the US usually just lets the free market work its magic, right? But now the government is looking at taking direct federal equity stakes in AI companies. This is actually a lot like what they've done in other highly strategic sectors, like quantum computing.
And a major catalyst for this shift is, once again, public anxiety. A solid 63% of Americans believe AI is advancing far too quickly. Furthermore, 40% think AI will have a strictly negative impact on society. In a democratic system, institutions absolutely must react to this kind of fear. Because of that, gaining a tighter grip on AI regulation through nationalization, well, it's becoming highly politically advantageous.
But here is the wild part. Facing potential public backlash and the threat of a speculative financial bubble, the AI industry itself is enthusiastically offering up equity to the government. They're trading it for stability and a political backstop. For instance, OpenAI reportedly floated giving the U.S. government a free 5% stake. That is valued at roughly $40 billion, free of charge. Why? Well, they are spending literally absurd amounts of money on data centers and infrastructure. If that bubble pops, a state partnership guarantees a massive safety net. It's this fascinating mutual agreement where tech giants are willingly surrendering a degree of control to the state. Moving on to Section 4, media truth and education, the battle for the narrative.
While the U.S. is looking to control the technology of the future, how do institutions battle over the truth in the present? Well, our next source is a highly satirical debate between a popular online educator in India, Khan Sir, and a fictional media anchor, and it perfectly highlights the real-world tensions surrounding the country's dropping press freedom index and media integrity. This satire aggressively points out how the media can sometimes act as an institutional lever of control, basically pushing specific, sanctioned narratives while totally ignoring real grassroots struggles like unemployment and exam paper leaks. There's this one really powerful quote that anchors the whole debate. Conser says, "The biggest patriot is the one who questions the flaws of the country." It brilliantly contrasts the media's demand for blind praise with the educator's defense of just asking the hard questions. The sketch highlights a really vital dynamic here. Authorities and media might seek to control the narrative by focusing on superficial comparisons, like claiming the economy is doing better than a struggling neighboring countries. But true civic duty, that requires actually confronting your own internal flaws.
In this satirical clash, things get pretty wild. The media character threatens a two-core defamation suit and bizarrely argues that affordable hospitals are actually ruining population control because fewer people are dying. It's incredibly dark humor, right? But the educator counters by defending affordable grassroots education, like cheap coaching for the UPSC exams. He argues that accessible information and education are the ultimate defense against this kind of institutional manipulation. Finally, let's zoom out to Section 5, Dictatorships and Silent Revolutions. The extreme absolute. We are now looking at the most extreme end of the spectrum of control, North Korea. This outlines their absolutely terrifying guilt by association law. It's a system of absolute control that dictates the brutal fate of even a political prisoner's grandchildren. Basically, if one person commits a political crime against the state, their immediate family members are imprisoned, and up to 3 generations are punished to cleanse their so-called impure blood. It instills this paralyzing fear. Citizens wouldn't dare step out of line, knowing it would literally doom their children and their grandchildren. The micromanagement of daily life is staggering. The Kim regime seeks to monitor every single facet of human existence. Citizens are rigidly sorted into this 3-class system called songbun, core, wavering, or hostile, based entirely on loyalty. There is a literal fashion police that will cut your clothes if you wear banned items like blue jeans. Men have to choose from just 15 approved hairstyles. If you access the state-monitored internet, your state-issued phone randomly takes screenshots of your user activity to send right back to the government. They even force citizens to spy on their own family members. It's total, suffocating control. But, and this is where it gets really interesting, despite this absolute totalitarianism, the data shows that a silent revolution is actually brewing from the ground up. Because men are forced into these low-paying state jobs, it's the women who run the local black markets, which are known as jangmadang. Believe it or not, these women now account for 70% of household income. On top of that, a staggering 81% of recent North Korean escapees reported having access to smuggled USB sticks. What's happening is that basic human survival and exposure to the outside world are slowly breaking the regime's psychological grip. These smuggled USBs are loaded with South Korean dramas and foreign media. And think about it, when neighbors secretly watch these shows together, it requires an immense level of mutual trust, right? That directly undermines the secret police's goal of making everyone spy on each other. The very black markets that were initially created out of sheer starvation are now fostering unmonitored unity. They have become hubs of information that are actively shattering state propaganda.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. Can any institution, no matter how powerful, truly maintain absolute control when people find a way to share information and truth? Whether we're looking at democracies adjusting to voter sentiment, tech giants yielding to public anxiety, educators battling media narratives, or North Koreans sharing smuggled USB drives in the dark, the human desire for truth and autonomy always seems to find a crack in the architecture of control. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep questioning the levers pulling your world.